Hi, I'm Dan Cortopassi. Today I'm reviewing an HO scale SD90MAC-H Phase 2 from Athearn Genesis. This model is part of Athearn's Genesis 2.0 line. My example is decorated for Union Pacific with a red sill stripe. Athearn offers this model in two versions. The MSRP for the DC version is $249.98. The MSRP for the version with DCC and sound is $339.98. I paid $288.98 for my model from Factory Direct Trains. We'll start the model at 100 possible points. The locomotive comes in a heavy cardboard box with a foam liner. A two-piece plastic cradle protects the model. Small pieces of foam protect the handrails. The box includes an owner's manual with DCC and other information. A sheet with exploded view drawings is also included. This is a good box that should protect the model for storage and transport. Union Pacific's SD90MAC-H Phase 2 locomotives were delivered in 2000. UP called them SD90ACs. They didn't last very long in UP service and were returned as soon as their leases expired. All of them were off the roster by 2006. After its retirement from UP in March 2006, the former UP 8559 became an EMLX lease unit. The engine retained its UP paint, with only a line through the Union Pacific on the sides, a blacked-out UP shield on the nose, and an EMLX decal on the short hood. From the photos I found, EMLX 8559 was in storage at Mid-America Car between 2007 and 2010. In 2011, the unit had PRLX reporting marks. Many of these units have since been scrapped. Looking for photos of this engine can be a little confusing, as UP has an SD70 ACE numbered 8559 that looks similar at first glance. That locomotive was delivered in 2007. Be sure to keep that in mind if you're doing research on these units, as the SD90MAC-H2 looks a lot like a stretched SD70 ACE. The SD70 ACE in the background has a similar cab, radiator section, and overall configuration, but it's shorter and differs in many of the smaller details. I compared the model to photos I found of the real 8559 as both a UP and an EMLX unit, and to photos of several sister units. Athearn seems to have nailed it. I didn't notice anything on the model that looks different from the real thing. The paint is opaque and thin enough not to obscure the model's excellent detail. The markings are crisp and all but the tiniest writing is legible with magnification. There are only a couple tiny voids in the Union Pacific lettering on the sides where the red letters cross panel seams or small details. This is all but invisible without a magnifying glass. It's worth noting that the yellow door latch paint that creates gaps in the upper red stripe on the hood sides is correct. The real units look like that too. This model has a lot of detail and it's fun to look at. Many of the grills on the sides are photo etched with detail behind them. The grills in the back and the dynamic brake area are see-through. The handrails are made of a flexible plastic that should resist breakage. Unlike some other recent Athearn models that I've purchased or reviewed, the stanchions on this one are straight up and down. The truck side frames have a lot of detail, including brake lines, sander lines, and a brake chain on the fireman's side front truck. In front, the engine has plenty of detail, including freestanding grab irons and windshield wipers. The plow appears to be the correct shape. The pilots have uncoupling levers and hoses. It's hard to see in this shot, but the corner steps have see-through perforations. The cab has sunshades and wind deflectors. In back, the model has more freestanding grab irons. The rear pilots have spare knuckles mounted in the correct locations. On top, the model has an antenna dome on the cab. The exhausts look neat and you can see down into the model through them. The horn is in the correct location. Again, it's a little hard to see, but the radiator fans are see-through with separate blades inside. The dynamic brake area has more depth than on some other Athearn offerings too. Under the sill, there's plenty of plumbing and other detail. All of the axles are powered and all the wheels pick up current. The model has contact strips behind the side frames that also act as wheel bearings. The locomotive has McHenry plastic knuckle couplers on both ends. The front coupler is at the correct height according to the Katy height gauge. The rear coupler is also close enough to call it good. All the wheels are engaged according to the NMRA standards gauge. There is no body wobble. The model weighs 23.7 ounces. I measured a peak drawbar pull of 5.2 ounces for this engine, about double that of an average HO scale diesel. I'm running the model on DCC and haven't changed any of the default Tsunami 2 decoder settings. F0 turns on the headlights, which are directional. The forward light shines when the locomotive is set to move forward, and the rear headlight shines when it's in reverse. F5 turns on the ditch lights, which only stay on in the forward direction. UP ditch lights don't flash when the horn is pressed. F7 dims the headlights and ditch lights, which seems a little odd. Usually when dimming the headlight, the ditch lights should be off. I had to dim the lights even more to see this one, but F6 turns on the number boards. Kudos to Athearn for finally making diesels with lit number boards. The model also has ground lights, which seem to just be on when there's power on the track and are not controllable. The flickering you're seeing is due to the video frame rate and doesn't happen in person. F8 turns the sound off. It comes on by default. F3 is a short toot on the horn. F1 rings the bell. F2 makes a long toot. F4 activates the dynamic brake sound. The Tsunami 2 has a brake function, but according to the manual, it's not enabled by default. The manual explains how to enable the brake if you want to use it. Let's see what we've got. No deductions. This model gets a perfect score, a definite A+ on a report card. This is a really nice model and it deserves a green signal. Congratulations to Athearn for getting the first perfect review score in HO scale on this channel, and only the second perfect score to date. I think Athearn did an outstanding job on this model. The real ones weren't in service for very long, but I think the models will last a lot longer on people's model railroads.